I'd like to call the Executive and Finance Committee meeting to order. Councilor Snell, would you do our invocation?
Sure. Keep your eyes closed. Dear Lord, thank you, Lord, for this beautiful fall day. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to come out today and do our work for the Cherokee Nation. And bless the audience that's here today. And Lord Jesus, help us to make good decisions. We pray for wisdom. We pray for understanding, Lord. And just be with us as we go through this committee meetings today. Thank you very much. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Kara Cowan-Watt. Ahani. Bill Anglin.
Here.
John Baker.
Here.
Bless you. Julia Coates. Here. Jody Fishinghawk. Janelle Fulbright. Here. Don Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
China Glory Jordan. Present. Lee Keener.
Ahani.
Dick Glade.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton.
Here.
David Walkingston.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, you do have a quorum. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the August 23rd budget hearings and August 25th regular session.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Next are our reports and our financial treasurer's report. Ms. Catcher.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You have my written report. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Catcher? Are you about to wrap up the fiscal year?
It's been a week, I can tell you that. But yes, we are getting ready to jump right into closing the year.
Okay. Well, we appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Cherokee Nation businesses, Mr. Stewart.
That was so short I didn't have hardly time to make my notes. Good afternoon. I'm reporting for July, and C&B had a great month all the way around, primarily as a result of higher gaming revenue. Surprisingly, it was one of our top net income months in the history of the company. So indication that the economy is still reasonably strong, at least from a entertainment and retail standpoint, and we're optimistic that those numbers are going to carry us through to reach budget for the year. A couple of items you need to be aware of. The board approved the budget for 2012. That budget, it's surprising, but the total revenues have reached almost $720 million for all the companies, 200 of which is in non-gaming revenues. Those margins are not quite as great, but it just shows that we're starting to diversify and get into some of these other businesses. So that's good. The projects are going well, all in our different phases of design. We've I think rested on a couple of designs, at least at Ramona and Fort Gibson, are complete. Tahlequah is still somewhat on hold until we develop the site plan. And the tower at Hard Rock, I think we're breaking ground this week or next to kick it off, and it's in some stage of design, so you'd be able to see the the renderings if you'd like to see those. I've handed out an update on our initiative to develop our citizens in training. As you know, the board approved approximately $3 million to affect this plan. The very first page you will see are the different elements of the plan. All of those, some have been developed more than others, but eventually we will have a document that you will be able to look at each of those programs, and there will be a timeline and what that encompasses, and then also a budget allocation to those different items. So I'm really looking forward for that to start taking some shape. We report on this to our board of directors every month, and I've also added some key developments as the second page to that, where you can see some of the accomplishments. So you can read those as you have time, and don't really want to go over those in detail today, but you can and I'll be available for the questions on this at another time after you've had a chance to look at it and answer any questions you might have today about our businesses.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Stewart?
One quick question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Chairman Keener. Councilor Keener. Sorry.
David, on the 1 through 8 on the Development Institute,
Mhm.
is the Cherokee Education Foundation working on all those with you?
I don't know if they're working on all of them. What we've tried to do is to divide them up, and where it's appropriate, we get all of the resources of the tribe and all the entities involved.
Okay.
So primarily, we're involved in the ones on the right-hand side of the page, because that's the business, and then we're trying to align and use the resources of all the other entities, including the nation, to develop those others.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Stewart? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Next is Career Services, Ms. Kelly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I know that you guys are really busy and you probably have a lot on the agenda, and you've got my report, so therefore I won't belabor it. If you've got questions, I'm here to respond to them. I just wanted to remind you about the Economic Summit for Rogers State in Rogers County, which is October the 13th. The Cherokee Nation is one of the co-sponsors for, and it is our third annual Economic Summit. Northeastern has held this in 2 previous years, and we're kind of going back and forth since we're expanding into the 14 counties. So that will be October 13th. And then also Governor Mary Fallon has her Economic Development Conference at the Hard Rock on Friday, October the 14th. And then our Tarot Vendor Fair, which is Thursday, October the 20th, which is an all-day event at the Hard Rock. And also our Tarot Banquet that evening on the 20th. We've been working on that. They were working on getting the selections made for the honorees for that this afternoon. So we're working real hard to plan a really gala event, and hope if you haven't been, we want you to come. I think it'll be a real enjoyable evening.
It is a good event.
Yeah, we will send out letters to each of you, letting you know if there are people that are going to be receiving some of the awards from your specific district, so that you'll know.
Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may not be able to answer this for me, but it's tarot related. I'm curious as to whether there's a security contractor at the Bonita Clinic project that kind of does overnight security, and if so, is it a tarot contractor?
Okay.
I hear things in the community about it not being a tarot contractor.
You're talking about the Bonita Clinic?
Yes, the security, if there is security in place, and what I'm hearing is that it's not.
I'll be glad to check into that. We have had a series of meetings this past month with Angela Drews and Dana Espinal. We had a meeting at the complex in regards to tarot and working with them on shutdowns and fines. And then we also had a follow-up meeting that Sean Slayton and I and Anna Knight attended at the Hard Rock the following week with some of the contractors that are working on their specific project. So it was a really good meeting because there were some things that they enlightened us on, and at the same time we were able to share some good information. So there'll be a series of more meetings to come.
Okay, thank you. And I'll look back and see if you ended up sending me something on this, but I had asked for I think I'd asked for a list of the tarot contractors and how many. I'm looking back through emails to see if I got it. Do you recall that request? I'd asked for
Mr.
just
O'Brien?
tarot.
Yeah, we can send that to you, but I can have Tammy actually, if she wants it right now, resend that back to you as well.
Okay, I want to say thank you, John. I want to say maybe I got it, but while I had you up there, Diane, I thought I would just double check. So it may well have been sent to me.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Watkins.
Ms. Kelly, the day work program,
Yes, sir.
I was at Hastings the other evening, and one of their concerns was some of the day workers are they have to give them access to to places where there's records and pharmacy, just different areas for cleaning, trash, just maintenance work, and a lot of this work occurs after hours at nighttime, and caught some of them, going through desk and stuff, and but some of the employees that they've done background checks on, because they have those access, are ex-felons, and we have at Hastings we have a lot of children, running around the hallways and a lot of dark areas and so forth, and safety concerns, and one of their things was getting day workers over there that have a clean background. Do you guys do background checks in the day work
Yes,
program?
sir, we do.
Do you?
In fact, when the day workers are sent out, no matter whether it's at Hastings or any place like that, Hastings basically signs an agreement that they will provide supervision at all times for those individuals. And if they are allowing day workers to work in the records or wherever, that is their responsibility to ensure that there is supervision. It's not our responsibility because they request a number of workers. But at all times, if you're overseeing a specific area, whether it's health facility, hospital, it is your responsibility to ensure that there is adequate supervision. So that would fall back on the administrator of the hospital to ensure that. And if we have gotten calls or complaints from employees, and we've asked that they direct those to their supervisors and follow the chain of command so that that can be looked into. But we do drug testing, and we also do background checks. And we do have people that have had felons or that have had expungements or that they have got misdemeanors. And we've had people that have called and said, well, so-and-so's not paying their child support. You've got them working up here at the hospital.
Yeah. But see, I guess some of the security there have been police officers, and they see employees there, and they say, well, I arrested that guy at one point, and so it raises a lot of concern to
the security officers need to take that up with Mr. Rob Roy, who is over security, and then he in turn take that up with the hospital administrator. I don't have any control once we send the employees out there to them, then it's up to them to explain to them what they're actually going to be doing and training them in those respective jobs.
Okay, well, this
you may want to direct that to Melissa Gower in the health committee meeting.
Well, I think a lot of the, as far as maintenance goes, a lot of supervisors, when they have employees under them, they just give them a task. I mean, because they can't go and supervise, 5 or 10 staff members all the time. They got to give them trust, and they may just assume that the employee that they have does have a clean background, and they can just turn them loose to go wherever. I don't know. It's something that we need to look into as far as putting people that have felons on their background into sensitive positions. They need to be maybe on a construction site where they can be supervised the whole time, versus being in a hospital in a large area where there was not supervision.
The Cherokee Nation does have a youth sensitive policy in place, and it is followed, and the supervisors that request those workers know what those policies are. So again, Councilman Walkingstick, I would defer back to the health director and ask that she look into that and check to see what they're requesting and whether or not there's adequate supervision. And if there's not adequate supervision, then maybe they need to get with us and not request so many workers or whatever. I don't know, but I do know that for the hospital, they do request a lot of workers, and our day workers have actually done a lot of work up there to maintain the facilities.
So there is a policy in place that if someone has a felony on their background, that you guys don't put them in sensitive positions such as the hospital.
I'm not going to say that we don't, because it depends on what kind of felon, because there's different levels.
Okay. I don't know if we could get a policy in place, or do you guys get a policy in place that we exclude felons, ex-felons, to those sensitive areas?
Okay. Again, there is a youth sensitive policy in place, And our program, on our federal end of it, one of the criteria for serving some of those people is that they have a barrier to employment. And one of those barriers to employment may mean that they do have a felon, and we do work with them. We can't actually exclude them from coming in and filling out an application, but we can go through the application process and determine where they're actually placed. And in the past, if there was somebody who actually slipped through the cracks on a felon, then they were actually removed from that site. But it is, again, up to the supervisor who actually requests the workers to do pre-screening and to tell us what they need in lieu of the workers. And if some of the maintenance people are telling you as a council member that there are things that are not being done, they need to refer that to their supervisor, who in turn needs to refer it to the hospital administrator.
So the supervisor is responsible for pre-screening the people that come in to the workplace.
We do some pre-screening on our end, and we do drug checks. Like I said, though, there may be some that may slip through the cracks. We're not perfect by no means, and occasionally that does happen.
I just want to be proactive to a situation that could occur into something like that. You know, I don't want us to, you know, the day work program. I mean, the day work program is great, but we just need to tighten up a little bit in that area.
Okay, in the outlining areas, whatever is tightened up at the hospital, it'll be tightened up at the clinics. And in the outlining areas, the clinics is one of the areas where we actually do several placements for our day work participants. And depending on what you're referring to as tightening up, it may exclude some of those workers from actually being placed out at the clinics.
I would exclude workers with felonies, period.
Okay.
I mean, because I know felony is going out fishing illegally and having over $1,000. That's a felony. And I mean, so that person, you know, hurt from that when you first going out and getting a job. No. But I think just periods of that way, it'll just cut down on people talking. You know, this person has felonies. He's clean. He's in the records, or he's in the pharmacy. You know, and even at Sequoia High School, you know, we put a janitor at Sequoia High School around kids, you know, around dorm kids and stuff. So I just want to tighten up in that area where we shouldn't have any felons working in sensitive positions.
Then what we would have to define, it would be up to the health department to define exactly what areas that they deem as sensitive areas, and then it would be up to them to define that, and then they would be excluded. Whatever they tell us is where we would send the people to. But they have individuals that are points of contact once the day workers are referred to them. And as far as the felons, to give you an example, in determining different levels, we've had the same discussion with the gaming commission, because there's different levels. We had an individual that when he was 16 or 17 broke into someone's house. He's 39 years old. He's been working at a school as a maintenance janitor for 20 years. And he ended up coming through day work. And as a result of it, he never missed a day of work, was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, worked sometimes till 9 or 10 o'clock, had a good work record, but because he had this felon that goes back to when he was 16 years old, he was prohibited from being able to come in and apply.
Sure. And not just the health department, but the education. I mean, it goes in all facets of Cherokee Nation.
You're correct.
Defining sensitivity. And I think anywhere where there's children, anywhere where there's people, period, I would almost prefer to partner with Taro and put them on a construction site somewhere and let them earn their dollar that way.
I'll be glad to get a copy of the youth sensitive policy that's in place and where those youth sensitive areas are, if you'd like a copy of it.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
been in place for a number of years.
Email that to me, please. That's it.
Councilor Thorne.
Donnie, I just got a couple of questions.
Sure.
When a day worker goes on to that job site, doesn't that job site supervisor have the right to send them back to the day work program?
Yes, he
To
does.
be lined out to go somewhere?
Yes, he does.
Then-
And there is also a policy in place on our end that if they are doing something that they shouldn't be doing on that
Right.
job site or enacting a fight or anything, then they can be suspended for a number of weeks up to months.
The other thing on felons, I don't think all felons should be eliminated.
I agree.
I think that, violent crimes, theft, that type of thing should be looked at. But there's some felons out there that, have turned their life around like you were talking and trying to make it. And I think that's what that day work program helps is some of these people. There's some down in our area, and they've been awful good workers and worked awful well. And there's some that haven't, and there's some that go out there and they'll lie, anything to their advantage to get out of work. And I've worked a lot of people. I've worked a lot of felons that were in prison at the time that would come into the park every day, Monday through Friday, and work. Some of those workers were awful good.
Well, right
You have
now,
to keep your eye on others. But if one messed up, he goes back.
we're
And
anticipating.
you got the right to send him back. That hospital over there's got the right to send him back. So
They do.
I can't understand. If they don't want to send them back, well then that's their problem. But anyway, that's what. Thank you.
I would just like to say that starting Monday, we're probably going to have an influx of individuals because we've been shut down for 2 weeks. And Monday morning, I'm sure that the halls here at the complex are going to be bombarded with day workers that are wanting back in the program because the new fiscal year starts. And we'll have them in all the outlining areas. And right now, Sequoia County is running a second to Cherokee County on the number that's coming into that office. And we're going to have job sites to place these people in. And if we don't have job sites, then they're going to be put on hold.
These job sites, these job sites are strictly for Cherokee Nation.
That's correct. And the reason for that is because we're getting all kinds of people that walk through those doors, just as Councilman Walkingstick said. We get different levels of felons, we get some, but we don't get that many, but there are a few that do come through the door, yes.
Yeah.
I would say we get more people that are not paying child support that come through the doors than we do anything, really, if the truth be known.
Do you know if there's anything going out there for the federal government to help us pay for that program?
Right now, we have 3 different avenues that we're tapping into for day work training. One is federal, and that is our NAHASA dollars. If they are a housing recipient, then they can come in and qualify to go through that program, and that is anybody that is Native American descent. Then we also have the money that we're getting from C&B that we're working with the C&B businesses at Catoosa and at West Salem Springs. Hopefully we'll be expanding that into Sequoia County here in the next few weeks because we have had discussions on that. And we're also doing vocational training with those dollars to assist them in moving some of their staff up in the career ladders so that they're more gainfully to obtain some of the supervision jobs or career ladders within the organization. And then the third piece is the tribal dollars for anybody that is a Cherokee Nation member.
Okay. I've noticed, in our area that there are several that have went on and got another job because of this program. And they appreciate it. Most of them made it on through and made good workers for another employer. And there's a few of them that fall aside, But I think it's a real good program. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Any other questions for Diane? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is Commerce. Is anyone here from Commerce for Ms. Knight? The report is in your packet. Okay.
Jack?
Yes.
Would it be possible for someone to carry a message back to Anna?
I can do that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
On this Commerce report, I would like her, in addition to the summary she's given us on loans to maybe summarize for us next month at length what the loans that we still have in-house were made for and what collateral we have and how often the collateral is checked. And I don't mean to be harsh, but I've noticed a trend. We seem to be doing a lot of beauty shops. And I'm kind of acquainted with collections in that area, and it's hard to collect. And I see a number of cattle loans, and I'm just wondering how often those are checked, because that's another sensitive area. And I only see one of these loans that was secured by a mortgage. Everything else is what I call rolling stock in the collection industry, which means it usually rolls off when someone defaults. And I see zero equity on every one of these loans for the owner's equity part except one. And if you don't have something invested in a loan, it's much easier to walk off when you get upside down. So I'm kind of wondering about this zero equity business. So if she would enlighten us next month with a more thorough report of what kind of loans we have out, what kind of collateral we have on those loans, and how often they're checking that collateral.
Can do.
Bingo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next are our consent items. And first are the tarot certifications. And I would entertain a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or any questions on any of them? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so those are approved. Next are the cemetery restoration assistance applications, and those were passed out just prior to the meeting.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any discussion? Looks like we have two. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next are the community assistance, and that was also passed out just prior to the meeting.
Motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes. Councilor Garland?
Did you say community assistance?
Yes.
I have one individual that would like some help to go to the cheerleading camp and parade in Houston, Texas on Thanksgiving Day. And, she's an outstanding individual. I strongly recommend that we help her. But I understand our policies won't allow that. I was going to ask our attorney to explain.
That is correct, Mr. Garvin, and we spoke briefly before the committee, is that the auspices of the community assistance must be a group, an organization that has 51% tribal membership, and we have not awarded individual specific awards for quite some time. So it's my opinion that even though this is new money for a new fiscal year, that we still operate under the auspices of the community assistance guidelines.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Julie. Councilor Con Watts, did I see your hand up earlier?
I just want to clarify for the record, Chris Stokes no longer on council, so who's making those donations? There's
We
a
have
number that are under
an answer
Chris's
to
name,
that.
so.
Mr. Chairman.
Because actually this,
I can speak to that.
okay, Councilor Austin.
Thank you. I don't know why they're under former Councilman Soap's name, but I do know that, and I think the same is true for Councilman Lay and Councilor Fraley. We got an email saying that those funds were available for distribution by our directive, so that's why.
Thank you. I mean, I guess technically they should go elsewhere where it's been apportioned, but I won't challenge it at this time.
Okay. Councilor Hoskin.
And then one other follow-up on Councilor Garvin's question. I mean, it does seem to me that we may have some flexibility here because as I recall, the Community Assistance Act was actually repealed in connection with the Donations and Contributions Act. We've returned to that in terms of funding, but I don't know that we have that rigid rule in place because I don't think that act exists anymore. I don't know if Mr. Henry's still in the room, but
I am.
but in any case, I know Mr. Garvin stepped out, but I just wonder if we have more flexibility than we think.
I would, if it's the council's intention to revisit giving individuals direct awards, I would recommend that you would develop a specific policy on that prior to starting awarding them.
I think that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Truly. Councilor Thorne.
Yes. What my question for Mr. Garvin was, is this a, did he say a cheerleader that's going to Dallas?
Houston.
Someone, Houston. And is it, is she, of course she's Cherokee. Why couldn't she donate through the school? Because they have they have 501c3 or they have tax exempt number, and they could handle it as far as letting her have funding.
The superintendent of the school doesn't know this thing.
Well, we got a problem there.
Okay.
Jack?
Yes.
Could I address this to Mr. Garvin?
Okay, yes.
Has she checked into Cherokee First? It's an activity that she's doing individually, and I would think Cherokee First has some money that she could use individually.
Monday we'll begin a new
October
funding year.
1st. Really?
It'll still be the same for individuals. It'll still be the same for individuals.
Cherokee First or the sports award would be probably the best avenue to go by.
Okay. Councilor Watkins.
And that begins October 1st, is that correct? The application does?
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the community assistance?
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if this falls under community assistance, but I happened to look at the budget and it had something in there about $45,000 to go into the FFA show animals budget, and I wasn't here when that happened, and I don't know how they apply for it. I don't know how it's divided up. I need to know because we've got a good FFA program down in Squirrel County, and I'm sure they want to be a part of that budget. So, is there an application they apply for, or do they get so much funding to award those?
Yeah, that particular program under livestock auctions, David, would apply to the community services group. They process those applications specifically for the livestock auctions that the local FFAs participate in, and the budget hearings increased it by $25,000 for a total of $50, I believe.
I have to look it up.
But that's where your local FFA chapter would inquire.
Can you make sure I get that application?
Sure.
I'll get one
Be
or
happy.
whatever it takes, because I know we've got lots of Cherokees down there that participate and need help. Thank you.
Councilor Corey Jordan.
I may stand corrected, Mr. Garvin, or Mr. Thornton, but I believe your 4-H and FFA group last year participated in it. It was for your premium show. And I think you hold your premium show in the spring. And as I recall, they made application, and I believe they received the $100 per Cherokee child for their program. I think what they did was they contacted all the 4-H and FFA the agents and the advisors, and then promulgated some rules over in the executive branch and sent the applications out to each one of the 4-H agents and each FFA group, and then got that back.
I still want that application.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Next, I believe law enforcement requests. There are none. And next are the roads.
We do have some additions to the road report, even late this afternoon. We have two projects added. One, East 370 Road Overlay Project sponsored by Ms. Watts, and a North-South 4360 Overlay Project sponsored by Mr. Hoskin, in addition to the report that was sent out to you in your packets.
Entertain a motion for their approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just one, Doug, ma'am.
Yes.
Doug, I just want to make sure, any funds that we have left, those are subject to carry over, right?
Yes, ma'am.
On all of our road programs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those are approved. There's no old business. Under new business, we have one item, which is discussion on the Terra law reform. And Mr. Light.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion asking this committee to authorize a small breakout group to meet, conduct interviews, discuss, and study the following: Legislative Act 3005 and Executive Order 12-10-CS, to review these documents as to their effectiveness and as to possible legislation, if needed, as to possible recommendations to HR compliance and certification. The goal would be to improve the Cherokee Nation Employment Rights Act and Cherokee First hiring and payroll performance and hiring, promoting, and compliance.
Okay. So you're asking this committee to set up a subcommittee to look over the Terra,
Yes,
which has been done in the past.
Second.
Okay. So any discussion on setting up the work group? Councilor Austin.
I did have that question, more, I guess, technical in nature. Is this a work group or is this a formal subcommittee? For council?
I would recommend that it be a formal subcommittee, that you would meet, have minutes on, keep track of the discussions on Terra reform, and that way you could have anybody come in and speak to it.
Okay. So it's, the motion is the regular subcommittee. Is that it?
I'd like to change that, yes.
Okay.
Subcommittee.
And you'll accept?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Councilor Oscar, would you like to chair that sub?
Certainly be honored to. That's the will of the body.
And who would like to be on this subcommittee?
Mr. Chairman, can we
Yes.
have a discussion and present a formal plan to them? I'm asking as co-chair.
Okay, now the motion was made that we form the subcommittee, and that, we just voted on that and it just passed.
So as co-chair, I think I'd normally chair it as a subcommittee, which I'm happy to do.
Okay. Is that,
Whatever the past procedure is fine with me. It's,
okay.
I certainly don't want to stand in the way.
I make a motion that he be co-chair. I believe that's probably allowable.
Second.
Okay. So the motion's been stated that Mr. Hoskin be co-chair along with Councilor Watts as chair. The motion made and stated. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So Chairperson Watson, you will set up the meeting time and the agenda and so forth.
And at that initiating meeting, any counselor that wishes to join that subcommittee just needs to show up and announce their sole intentions of doing that after they set a time and date.
Okay, and that, of course, will be sent to all of the council members. Okay. Is there anything further? Okay. Under announcements, is there anyone that plans to attend the tour of the Cherokee Kenwood area properties at the day of the Bull Hollow? Okay. Then you need to let Gail know, and you have to be there at 9 a.m. for the tour. Oh, and here she is now. I just asked who wanted to go on the tour, and I think there were 3.
Yeah, I had Julia and Kara and Curtis, and that's the only ones I heard from.
And Lee, you have?
Okay, Lee's on the other one?
Is there anyone else? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Could we ask Gail to just email us the instructions again of how you go through Moody and that way?
Okay. Yes. We can do that. To Bull Hollow. You have them?
Shelley, if you would.
I'm going to put in your packet.
Okay.
Should be in a second. Okay. Okay. And also, if you haven't turned in all of your expense reports, it is the close of the fiscal year, and so you need to get those turned in, both the expense, including your mileage reports.
Travel needs to be in there.
And travel, yes. So we get it in the proper fiscal year. Is that correct, Doug?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yes.
And I'm not sure this question would be in order, but I'm directing it to the chair. On the community meetings money,
Yes.
because we took on additional counties, is the formula still the same? With the additional counties comes the additional,
Doug, would you like to address that?
Wow, that's a good question.
so that
I
we
guess
can
that would
have
be the-
community meetings
be the
in
will of
those
the body.
additional areas.
The same dollar amount in total is in the budget.
Can you find more?
Well, as you recall, I trimmed 100,000 out of our budget to make room for the community assistance.
I would just ask that Doug look and see what he can do.
Let me do an email to everyone, synopsis and the current allocation that's in there now, and if we divide it by, the districts that we have in place at this point, to see how it would compare to what we had before.
Councilor Floyd.
Doug, if we have carryover in travel, is that going to be put into the youth assistance that we already?
Another good question. That would be a topic for consideration when you consider your travel policy next month. That policy still has paragraph 14 in it, I believe is the number, that addresses the carryover of elective travel into community assistance. But now that you have community assistance incorporated into the budget at the beginning of the year,
I couldn't really put that into the community meetings program, or the 1,500 we get a year.
again, I think that would be a proper pursuant to the will of the body.
There are more meetings that
Yeah, which, when we go back to the travel policy, that's part of that. Councilor Roy Jordan.
But since the travel policy is as it is now, and we're to the end of the fiscal year, would that travel policy not apply to what we have left at the end of this fiscal year?
That is what's in effect at this time.
So that money would go into the community assistance fund?
Unless this body votes not to at our next meeting.
But you can only vote forward, you can't vote backwards. So the policy now is the policy that we have in place, and what we do next month on our policy would only affect what we do going forward, because we can't have a retroactive policy.
But it would be unspent money at that point.
And that the policy goes forward from there, but the council on a month-to-month basis does budget modifications, and money that was there, if the committee so desired, could move that money to another place. You know, so it's all, you know, the policy would not be retroactive, but if you wanted to move the money from any budget to anywhere else, you can always do that.
I guess that's a debate for another day.
Right. Yes. Okay. And the mileage,
And the mileage doesn't have to be turned in by tomorrow. It has to be turned in after the next payday, because this payday still has a week of September in it. So you get paid next Thursday. Mileage has to be to me by Friday, so I can turn it in that Monday. So your mileage through September, you can get it to me by next Friday, and it will still go in.
Next Friday.
Next Friday,
Which
yeah,
one?
it goes from pay period to pay period. When I turn our time sheets in, mileage goes in at the same time.
We turn it in today, does it come on next Thursday's paycheck?
No, because this is in the middle of a pay period. You just did that.
okay.
So you still got a week to get it.
I don't know why it was.
Okay. Thanks, Gail. Are there any other announcements? Not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Good cookies.
Appreciate it.
But